and I got 5, but I don't know.
Okay. All right. Ellie, tell us, do you agree or disagree?
I'm gonna say disagree.
Where do you think the mistake was made? Or where?
I don't know, I just did it completely different.
Hey, what did you do?
I did 50, or 35 plus 23, and then got 48. And then 180 minus 27, and got 153, and then that's where I was at side of the page.
Okay, Andrew?
I did 35 plus 23, got 58. And then subtracted 180 minus 58, got 122.
Why did you do 180 minus 58?
Because on the bottom triangle, give you 2 of your angles, and you have to find the top one. So you can just subtract by 180 to find it.
Okay, and what did you get when you did 180 minus 58?
I got 122.
122, so that's that top angle in the triangle.
And it's the bottom of the top one because it's a vertical angle.
Okay, so go ahead and mark that down on the board.
What 80 minus 58? Is it 122?
And that gives you your top angle of your triangle. Because all 3 angles have to add up to 180, so you got 35 and 23. So that means that top angle would have to be 122. So mark it 122 degrees. I'd actually write 122 degrees in that angle. No, this top angle of the triangle at the bottom. This triangle here, all 3 angles have to add up to 180. If these 2 add up to 58, then what's this one going to have to be? Okay, so now she has that one marked as 122. Now what?
And then the bottom one of the top triangle is also 122 because it's vertical angle. And then I did 122 plus 27. And I got 149. Subtract 180 by 149. And I got 31.
And that gives you that third angle over there. There you go. Very good job on explaining it. Good job on telling them why these are congruent because they're vertical. And all 3 angles of a triangle always want to add up to 180. So if you know 2 of them, you can find the other one, the third one. So notice how much work we had to show. So simply just doing 35 plus 23 equals 58, you will not receive credit on that starting tomorrow. Because that is nowhere near enough work to figure out that angle. All right, what questions do you have on the bell ringer? All right, some of you need to make up your Chapter 5 test. You either were not here that day or you did not join Google Meet that day. I will give you today and tomorrow to come in and make up that test. If you were absent that Friday to take the test originally. You can come in today during advisory. You can come in today after school, but if you come today after school, you have to let me know ahead of time because I'll be in the library and I can take the test up there with me. You can come in the morning before school, or you can come tomorrow during advisory. You cannot come tomorrow after school because I'll be leaving. Okay? So you need to make up that test. Also, some of you that did take the test, you did not meet your goal. I have put it in the computer as mandatory tutoring, so you were told last Tuesday that you needed to start going to mandatory tutoring, and you need to go until you make up the test. In order to do the test retake, you have to, in mandatory tutoring, complete the Chapter 5 test retake review, do Chapter 5 test corrections and turn those in, and then you have to take the Chapter 5 test retake. Now, when you do the Chapter 5 test retake, you have to have all that other stuff done. Math tutor signing your paper, you already should have all of those. And then whenever you come to take the test retake, you'll just bring me that form and we'll make sure you have everything completed. But you'll need to, you were told last Tuesday. So make sure you go to tutoring, and whenever you get all of that done, you have until this Friday to get all of that completed and come in and do your test retake. Like I said, you can do your test retake during tutoring, or you can come in before or after school, or actually, before or after school or during advisory to do the chapter 5 test retake. But you have until Friday to do that. Okay? All right. Now, a couple things that you need to turn in. First thing I need is your bell ringer sheet from the last week we were here, that Monday and Tuesday. If you were quarantined on any day, you need to put a Q or put the word quarantine in the upper right-hand corner so that way I know why it's not stamped. If there's no stamp there and there's no absent or quarantine written down, you will not get credit. So make sure that you write either absent or quarantine on those days.
Do you need the test reflection?
We're getting to it.
Oh, okay.
Right now I need your bell ringer.
Sorry.
Alright, so make sure your name's on your bell ringer, pass it to the front row, pass it to the right. The next thing I need is your test reflection. It was due back last week, or that we were here. Even if you didn't get it signed, you need to fill it out. I think there might be a part where you sign it.
Yeah.
And then I need you to turn that in. Pass it to the front row, pass it to the right. And then you'll just stick all these together. You can just have them in a stack, just make sure it's like, don't mix them all up together. But you just need to sit them in front, back, however you do that. If you're doing the test retake, you will not turn in your test reflection yet. You have to keep that until you do all your stuff, and you have to get the math tutor to sign it. Okay, the next thing is any of your AMI work that you need to turn in. I need that. Some people have emailed me papers, and some people, when they emailed me, did not write their name or the title on it. And there's no way I can grade that after I print it off because there's no name or title on it. One of the papers is 6.1 practice corrections, your corrections from your 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math. Some people emailed it to me, but not everybody. That's part of 6.1 practice. So if you did not do the corrections, you do not get credit for doing the 6.1 practice. You'll get a 0 for that. So I need your 6.1 corrections. You will have until tomorrow to turn in any AMI work that you did not turn in yet. It was all supposed to be due that day. I will give you until tomorrow to turn it in. But 6.1 corrections, I need that. So I need you, if you have that to turn in, I need you to get that out. Make sure your name's on it.
If we give it to you tomorrow, it's still gonna be a full, it's still gonna count for grade.
As long as it's turned in to me by tomorrow. Any AMI work that wasn't turned in, it has to be turned in by tomorrow. Or you get a 0 and get counted absent for those days. Okay, the next thing is your 6.1 puzzle time worksheet. That was from that Tuesday, 6.1 puzzle time worksheet. Some of you are missing that. The ones that have not turned in the 6.1 puzzle time worksheet are I don't have Ellie's or Paladin's 6.1 puzzle time worksheet. All right, so just so everyone knows everything that they were supposed to do, okay? So if I have your attention, please. This is your 6.1 notes. This is from the day that we finished our notes, and then this was our day 2 notes. And then you had the 6.1 puzzle time on February the 9th. That's the worksheet that you were supposed to turn in that day, but I'll let you take it if you didn't finish it. It says, for February the 10th, your assignment for today is 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math. There will not be a Google Meet unless you need one for questions or help. Please email me if you have any questions. So that was the first thing you were supposed to do, was the 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math. And then whenever you click on the 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math, it told you that after completing the assignment, you needed to go through and do your corrections and email those to me or turn them in. Then on February 11th, some people have not completed 6.1 practice on Big Ideas Math. You need to complete that ASAP. Also, some of you have not gone in and made corrections to the ones you missed. It was stated in the directions that you would need to go in and view the problems you missed and write those down on notebook paper and send those to me. You may title it 6.1 corrections. Take a picture and email it to me. If you have questions or need help, please let me know by emailing me, okay? So if you did not email me your 6.1 corrections or your work, and if you did them on the same paper, that's fine. Just make sure that's, which part's your work and which part's corrections. Just let me know, write it on there. And then you'll have until tomorrow to turn in those corrections. Then the next day on the 11th, you had a Boom Learning assignment, okay? It says your assignment for today is on Boom Learning. It's angles, theorems for triangles. You will use your school Google account to log on as a student. Your deck has already been assigned. Any work shown may be emailed to me, labeled Boom Learning Activity. You may email me if you have any questions or need help. So that was the second day's assignment. So that needs to also be turned in if you have not turned that in. And then on the 12th, you had a worksheet to do. It says complete the interactive worksheet. When finished, click finished, and then click on email to my teacher. You'll type in your first and last name, and then for the grade and group level, you'll type in your hour, either first, third, sixth, or seventh, your third hour. And for subject, you'll put geometry, and then you'll type in my email address, which is here. And then if you have any questions, let me know. So you type your answers directly into the worksheet. And then for the 16th, well, actually, I posted it on the 16th, but it was for the 17th. This was your 6.2 assignment for AMI. It says your instructions for today are on this document. Please email me if you have any questions you may have. When finished with the video, submit the form so that I know the assignment notes have been completed. Okay, so this was the last thing you were supposed to do. It says watch this video and take notes on notebook paper. You will need to draw the diagrams as well. The spaceship does not have to be exact. If you just want to draw the triangles on the spaceship, that is fine. This will be the next page of our notes, 6.2 congruent polygons, and I believe it's page 28. 26, I believe, is your vocab. 27 is 6.1, and 28 is 6.2. Okay, so that's all of the work that you should already have it completed. However, giving you today and tomorrow to get it completed. Okay, so that's all of the things that you need to have completed, finished, and turned in, so that way you don't get a 0 and you don't get counted absent. All right, what questions do you have about anything that needs to be turned in or completed? All right, so Ben should have all the work. Remember, if you are doing a test retake, if you have until this Friday to come in and retake the test. If you're not required to, if you're just doing it because you think you can do better, you just have to attend one tutoring session. Tell me you're going to do it so that way I can assign you the Chapter 2 or Chapter 5 test retake. And then you can get, and like I said, you only have to attend one tutoring session. However, if you did not meet your goal, you're required to attend tutoring every day until all of that's done. And you have until Friday to get it completed. And again, some of you have not taken the Chapter 5 test yet. I will give you today and tomorrow to come in and make it up. Alright, 6.2 congruent polygons. We're doing more of what you just took notes on. This right here is going to be page 29 of your notes. And it's also titled 6.2 congruent polygons. So you can just say like 6.2 congruent polygons continued whenever you do fill out your table of contents. Our goal, students will be able to identify and use corresponding parts of congruent polygons. And the polygons we're going to be focusing on mostly is triangles, but know that this works for any polygon. Except for with triangles, they just have 3 sides and 3 angles. And then, so you only have to show those congruent. With other ones like quadrilaterals, you have to show all 4 angles and all 4 sides. Pentagons, all 5 sides, all 5 angles, and so forth. Okay, so first thing, what exactly is corresponding parts? Notice there's fill in the blank over there. Corresponding sides and corresponding angles of congruent figures are congruent. So notice you're going to need to fill in the blank. Corresponding sides and corresponding angles of congruent figures are congruent. So if you know two figures are congruent, then you know that all of their corresponding angles are congruent and all of their corresponding sides are congruent. Okay? And then you'll notice I put the picture over there on the left. That's to give you some more room to write over there on student notes. So you have a picture, and it's two triangles, and all their angles and all their sides have been marked congruent. All right, so what is right up here, and let me pull this, actually let me just rewrite that to where it's easier for you to see. This right here is known as a congruent statement, so I need you to write that over there to the right side under student notes. I need you to write that triangle ABC over there on the right where it says student notes. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay? That is what's known as a congruence statement. So if they ask you to write a congruent statement, you know that that's what they mean, a congruence statement. Okay, so you need to mark that as a congruent statement. You need to write the congruent statement and then write down that that is a congruent statement, so that way whenever they ask you to write a congruent statement, you'll know what they're asking for. Okay? Now, with a congruent statement, that gives you, or you can find the corresponding parts. Okay? So then up underneath your congruent statement, I need you to write corresponding parts. Corresponding parts means corresponding angles and corresponding sides. Okay? Now, whenever you are listing the corresponding parts, you can go about it two different ways. You can either look at what's marked, if there are any markings. Sometimes there's not markings and you can't do this. So for instance, if you look at this picture, see how angle A has one mark with it? Well, it's congruent to the angle over here that also has one mark, which is D. So angles A and D would be congruent. C has 2 and F has 2, so that means C and F are corresponding. B has 3 and E has 3, so that means they're corresponding. Okay, so, or, look at your congruent statement. See how angle A is listed first? Look at which angle is listed first here. Angle D. Notice A and D are congruent. B and E are both in the middle. They're listed second. Notice B and E. C and F are at the end. C and F are congruent. Okay, so part of the corresponding parts is all the corresponding angles. So you would write down that angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent. You need to be writing this down on your paper over there under student notes where you wrote corresponding parts. You need to write that down. Angle B is congruent to angle E. And then angle C is congruent to angle F. This is what they mean by listing the corresponding parts. That's all the corresponding angles. If this was a quadrilateral, we would have 4 sets of angles. Pentagon would have 5 sets. Hexagon would have 6 sets. All right, the other corresponding parts are the sides. Now, sometimes the sides aren't listed, or sometimes the sides aren't marked, but other times they are. So, for instance, here, see how BC has one mark and EF has one mark? That means that segment BC is congruent to segment EF. Segment BC is congruent to segment EF. Okay, so that's another set of corresponding parts. So when it says list all corresponding parts, that means list all the angles and all the sides. Now, BC and EF both had one mark, so I could tell by the picture. Sometimes they're not marked. You're going to have to look off the congruent statement. See how BC is the back two letters and how EF are the back two letters? They're in the same position, the same spot, so you can also tell there. Okay. Another set that would be the same. See how AB is listed first, the first two letters? It's going to be congruent to segment DE, because they're also listed first. So you would say that segment AB is congruent to segment DE. And then the third side is always going to be the first and last letter, so AC. So segment AC is going to be congruent to segment, and then the first and last letter here, which is DF. So segment AC is congruent to segment DF. Okay. Notice, all three angles are marked congruent, all three sides are marked congruent. You can also tell by the letters. See how AB has 2? DE also has 2. See how AC has 3 marks? DF also has 3 marks. So this is your congruent statement. This is all the corresponding parts of the two figures. Every angle matches up with another angle. Every side matches up with another side. Okay. All right, so let me show you an example. Oh, sorry, before we do that, the third angles theorem. What the third angles theorem says is if, and notice there's fill in the blank, if two angles of one triangle, so B and A, are marked congruent to two angles of another triangle, E and D, then that automatically means that the third angles are congruent. If two of the angles are congruent, then that automatically means that the third set of angles are congruent. So see how these two and these two are marked? Then by third angles theorem, you can go ahead and mark angle C congruent to angle F. Angle C is going to be congruent to angle F. Okay. The reason for that, if this one was 60 and this one was 80, this one would also be 60 and this one would also be 80. Okay. Well, we know from 6.1 that all three of these have to add up to 180. Well, 80 plus 60 is 140, and 180 minus 140 is 40, so this angle would have to be 40 degrees. 60 plus 80 is 140, 180 minus 140 is 40, so this angle here would have to be 40 degrees. Notice they're the same. Okay? So if it has two angles already marked congruent, then you automatically know that the third angle is marked congruent. Okay. Now let me show you an example. It says write a congruent statement for the triangles. Identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. So first it says write a congruent statement. The first one, the order you put it in doesn't matter. You can do alphabetical order. You can do the order of how many marks it has, 1, 2, 3. You can do your favorite. If it's got the letters of your name, do that one first. It does not matter on the first part. Me personally, I'm going to do alphabetical. So I'm going to say triangle JKL. Is congruent to triangle. Now the second part matters because you have to put the corresponding angles in order. Since I put J first, J has 2 marks, so I have to find the angle over here that has 2, which is T. So now T has to go first. So triangle JKL is congruent to triangle T. Now I'll look to see which one K matches with. K has 1, 2, 3. S has 1, 2, 3, so S has to go next. And then L has 1 and R has 1. So R would have to go last because L was listed last. Okay, that's a congruent statement. Now you have to list all corresponding parts. I like doing angles first because to me angles is the easiest. J and T are both listed first, so they go together. So I would put angle J is congruent to angle T. Then angle K is congruent to angle S. And angle L is congruent to angle R. That's all the angles. Now I've got to list all the sides. You can either look at the markings and start listing the sides, or you can look at the congruent statement and start listing the sides. See how JK and TS is listed first? I automatically know that JK is congruent to segment TS. JK is congruent to segment TS. Also look, JK has one, TS has one. Then KL would be congruent to SR, so segment KL is congruent to segment SR. And then you do the first and last letters. JL is congruent to segment TR. So you do the first ones, the second ones, and then the first and last. Or that's how I do it. I do the first two letters, the second two letters, and then I do the first and last letter for my sides. Okay. This is your congruent statement. These are your corresponding parts. Notice KL and SR both have 2 marks. JL has 3 and TR also has 3. Okay. All right, now that I've done like an actual problem, what questions do you have for me? Okay. All right, let's do one together. It says write another congruent statement for the triangles and then identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. So they listed one congruent statement already. They want us to do a congruent statement that's in a different order. So they wrote triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So first thing, the first statement, it doesn't matter which order you put it in, but they want it in a different order than ABC. Okay, Ben, give me an order for triangle ABC that's not ABC. Triangle CBA, perfect. So triangle CBA is congruent to triangle. Now we have to base our second one based off of what Ben said. So you need to figure out what angle is congruent to angle C. Caden, what angle corresponds to angle C? F, so that means F goes first. How could you tell that C and F were corresponding to each other? What did you look at? Oh, okay, so C has one arc and F has one arc, so I know that they're corresponding, they're congruent. All right, now B is second, it's in the middle. Braxton, which angle over here is going to be in the middle?
E.
How did you know it was E?
Because B has 2 lines and E also has 2 lines.
Perfect. And then Ivy, what's going to be my third letter? How did you know that D was going to be last? Perfect. So we knew all angles were corresponding to each other, which ones were corresponding to them. Okay, so that's this congruent statement. You could have also did BAC, BCA. It was up to you, but the second part depends on how the first part went. Now let's list the corresponding parts. It's up to you if you want to do angles or sides first. Gabby, which one do you want to do first? Angles or sides? Okay, give me a pair of congruent angles.
Angle A and angle B.
Angle A is congruent to angle D. How could you tell that those two are congruent? What did you look at? The lines on A and D. Okay, perfect. Aiden, give me another pair of corresponding angles.
B.
Angle B and angle E.
Yep.
How could you tell that those are congruent? What is
Same number of lines.
perfect? And then our last set of congruent angles, Colton, what would be the last set? We've done A and D, and B and E. So what other pair of angles do we have? Angle C is congruent to angle F. Perfect. Okay, now, previously they had the lines marked congruent for us. This time they don't. Now, if you would prefer them to be marked before you start marking them or making them congruent, saying that which ones are congruent, that's okay. You don't absolutely have to mark them, but it does help. See how AB is listed first and DE is listed first? That automatically means AB and DE are congruent. Okay, so you would say that segment AB is congruent to segment DE. Okay. Now your next set. BC is the back two. So Ellie, which side would BC be congruent to? EF, yeah, because EF is right there. So we go BC is congruent to EF. And you can even mark it if it helps you. BC, EF. And then we got one more set of sides. Kyle, what would be the third set that's congruent to each other?
CD.
Well, we already did CB. We've done AB and CB, so which one's left on this angle or triangle?
AC.
A segment AC, and it's going to be congruent to what?
DF.
DF, perfect. That's why I like to mark mine, because you noticed, like once you looked at like my picture and saw that I already had the two marked, it was easy to tell. Something else you could have done, see how AC is first and last? DF is also first and last. So you go first two, second two, and then first and last. And there you go. All right. Now that we've done those two together, or now that we've done actually three, what questions do you have for me? All right, next part. So this is you listing, being able to tell what all angles and sides correspond to each other. The next thing you have to do is show that two polygons are congruent. To show that two polygons are congruent, you have to show that all corresponding angles and sides are congruent. So I need you to write that like over in the top corner of that box where it says, where on that next box we're on, where it says teacher model. In order to show that two polygons are congruent, you need to show all corresponding angles and sides are congruent. Okay, so write that. Give yourself that note. Write that on your paper. Write it in the box, like up at the top corner of that box. Okay, Kyle, did you write this down? In that box of that next problem, of this problem we're about to do. Pretty much how I have it over here. That stands for angles. You're going to have to show that all corresponding angles and all corresponding sides are congruent in order to show that two triangles are congruent, or two polygons are congruent. Now, if something's already marked congruent, I'm not going to make you write that down. If it's already marked congruent, you're good. Okay. So, for instance, look at your picture. What do you notice has already been marked congruent in this picture?
Like segments?
Yeah, like PS is marked congruent to what? To segment QR. So those two sides are congruent. And then ST has been marked congruent to segment TQ, and PT has been marked congruent to segment TR. So it already tells me that all three sides are congruent. So do I even have to worry about showing that the sides are congruent? Do I need to write those down? No, because it's already shown, it's already marked. I have to show that the angles are congruent. So like I have to show that angle P and angle R are congruent somehow. So I have to show that this angle and this angle is congruent. Okay? So I have to say that angle P is congruent to angle R, but I'm not really sure how. So let me look at my picture. First thing you always want to check for, are they vertical? No, they're not even touching. Next thing I notice, this line and this line are parallel. How do I know that those two lines are parallel? Am I just assuming it? Well, they don't intersect, but there's something there telling me that they're parallel. Does anybody see any markings on there besides the congruent markings? Yeah, these two arrows here, these two triangles. That means that these two lines are parallel. Now from chapter 3, you remember having these?
Yeah, I hated them.
Alternate interior angles. And what do we know about alternate interior angles? All the way back from chapter 3. What do we know about these two? They were either going to be supplementary or congruent. Which one is it whenever they're alternate? Congruent. Same side as supplementary. Same side as supplementary. Hey, you're good. You answered. That's awesome. That's what I want you to do. It's one or the other. Hey, you had a 50% chance. So, alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent. That's all the way back from chapter 3. Now, just imagine if that was the only thing we had to do. Or, remember whenever we were in chapter 1 and all we had to do was name segment PT, and all we had to do was just, okay, this is how you name segment PT. And that was it? Yeah, let's wish it was always back that easy. Alright, but you can say that angles P and R are congruent because they are alternate interior angles. You have to give the reason why. You just can't tell me that they're congruent. You have to list the reason why. Alright, so you should have that written down. Okay. The next set of angles are angles T and T. Oh, that's the same angle. But when I look at my picture, that's talking about this angle here, which is not really angle T, that's angle PTS. Because remember, I can't just use T because there's multiple angles there. So I would say angle PTS is congruent to this angle here, which is QTR. Is there anything telling me that those two are congruent? Can I say that they're congruent? Do they have a certain type of relationship?
Yes.
What is that? I think it was even on our bell ring here.
They're equal.
They are equal, but why?
Because all sides are equal. You're right. It makes no sense.
Remember, it's on our bell ringer.
Vertical.
Said those two because why?
Vertical angles.
Because they're vertical.
Andrew, you're a little boy. You didn't know how to spell vertical. I'm just kidding.
Now I have one more pair of angles I need to mark congruent. Angle S and angle Q. What tells me that angles S and Q are congruent? There's a couple of different things you could use here. Oh wait, no, it's teacher model. So, a couple of different things you can use. See how we already had two angles shown that they're congruent? Then you could say that S and Q are congruent either by third angle theorem, or since these two lines are parallel and that's a transversal, they're also alternate interior angles. So either one's fine. You can either say because of third angles theorem or by alternate interior angle theorem. Either one of those will work. We've already shown 2 is congruent, and if you show 2 is congruent, then third's all automatically congruent. Were you striking or do you have a question?
we getting out this today?
Mm-mm. No, I'll take notes today and tomorrow. Okay, so you got 3 sets of sides and 3 sets of angles congruent. Now we're done. Alright, this one here. It says show that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CDB. Explain your reasoning. Okay, so to show that they're congruent, you have to show that all angles are congruent and all sides. Who did we end on earlier? Kyle? Alright, Andrew, do you see any angles marked congruent?
Angle A, angle C,
A and C is marked. Are any others marked?
B and D.
Yeah, so these two are marked and
Is
these
there-
two are marked.
Alternative interior.
Yeah, B and D are alternate interior. A and C are just marked congruent just because they told us they were congruent. So the only set of angles that I have left are this angle and this angle. Is there anything that I can use, like vertical angles, alternate interior angles, or third angle theorem to say that those two angles are congruent? Yeah, I can use alternate interior angles, yeah, because these two lines are parallel. You can use it anytime there's parallel lines. So these are alternate interior. Now, I can't just say angles D and B. I have to use all 3 letters. So I have to say angle ADB, that's this angle, is congruent to angle CBD. And that's because John says alternate interior angles.
Oh, I said that.
Or you could have used third angle theorem. Either one would have worked. You just couldn't have used vertical angles because they're not vertical. Okay, now we have to find all 3 sides congruent. John, since you answered that one. Rayleigh, how many sets of sides do you see marked congruent? 2. These 2 are marked, and these 2 are marked. Where is the third side of this triangle? You got this side, this side. Where's the third side? We're looking at this triangle here. You got 1, 2. Where's the third side? Do what? Yeah, in the middle. That you're saying this side right here, side DB. So let me put 3 marks on there. Is congruent to, and I've got to prove it's congruent to the third side of the other triangle. Okay, here's your other triangle. These 2 sides are marked. What's your third side of this triangle? Got 1, 2. Where's the third side of this triangle? Okay, here's 1, 2. Here's your triangle. Which side's not marked? Where's your third side? Do what? Just a second, we gotta finish this one before you put your stuff up. Here's 1, 2. Where's your third side? The middle. What would the name of that be? DD as well?
Yes.
Would you say that a side, BD, DB, same thing? Would you say that a side is congruent to itself? Don't put your stuff up yet. Is DB congruent to DB? If DB is 3 inches, is DB also going to be 3 inches? Yeah, that's called reflexive property. So you need to put by reflexive property. Alright, let's write that down. Bireflexive, write it down, because tomorrow you're going to want to know what that is. Write it down. As soon as everybody writes it down, then I'll let you get your stuff. After everybody writes that down. If you ever have anything that's the exact same thing, that's itself, just use reflexive property. Alright, now you can put your stuff up and enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to come in and make up that chapter 5 test, and don't forget to attend tutoring.
Daniel.
Always good enough, but. Good enough.
Yes,
It'll work. Perfect. I'm good.
yes.
It'll work. Will they give it to you in there or?
It'll be on Big Ideas Math, and then you should still have your chapter 5 test to do your test request, or to do your test corrections. Hello? You can, go ahead and walk by and leave down to get your lunch.